Back to my channel. In the previous set of tutorials, we have introduced various concepts in Pytorch. In this tutorial, we will try to see how we can actually train this model which we have defined in the previous set of tutorials. So we have defined a model which is a two-layer neural network model. And in this tutorial, I will tell you guys like how you can actually train this network and compute the loss functions in Pytorch. So before we do that, we have to first of all get to familiarize ourselves with a couple of concepts. So we first of all have to introduce the concept of torch device. Okay, so as you guys have noticed till now, we are trying these simple networks on this system, and this system is actually a CPU machine. For more advanced networks which train massive amounts of image data or textual data, will probably need to shift to a GPU machine, but we are doing all these experiments on a CPU machine. So we have to tell the torch system that we are using a CPU device. Now we'll introduce our inputs and our output for our model. So let's say we introduce two inputs, which is the input for our network, which is the we can initialize by randomly, and this input will have n number of um, n number of rows and din number of columns, and then we have to determine that which device this input should go into. uh, this is not very important right now, but when we will train these models on a GPU machine, this concept will become really important, so keep that in mind. We will then initialize the output of this network, which is again has n number of inputs or n number of rows, and again it's been defined on the device which we have defined previously. So I can just put it like this. Okay, now to train this network, we have to do a couple of things. So we have to first of all tell the network or tell the system that what loss function we are going to use. And here our torch neural network module becomes very handy, as it has a bunch of predefined loss functions which are already defined. So here we will use mean squared error, and it has we can determine that what kind of reduction which we want to use. So we can say we want to use the sum over the losses and use that to compute our gradients. We'll then define the learning rate for our network. So the learning rate, I will choose it to I to the power minus 4, and then we'll train this network for, let's say, 100 epochs. um, Now I will walk you through, guys, that how we will actually train this network. So to train this network, we first of all have to compute the prediction of this network over the input. So X is our input. We have already defined this network. So model is our network, and I will remove this line. And these are our variables and dimensions. And so if we first of all compute the prediction from our input, we'll then need to compute the loss. So for computing the loss, we can just simply tell the loss function that what is our prediction and what was our expected output. And we can also print the loss function, which can be really handy to debug if the model is doing a reasonable job. Then we have to do something called model.0grade. So this is important so that we can set the gradients before running backward pass. So we can set the variables or all the gradients to 0, and this will be we will do it in every epoch. So we'll set the gradient of the network to 0 so that we can compute a fresh batch of gradient. We will then do a backpropagation, and for that we can just do a backpropagation over the loss function or the value of the loss function. We will do loss set backward. What it will do is it will update the values of the gradients inside all the different weights in the network, and it will update their value. We'll then do a gradient update. So for doing that, we'll do torch.nograd. In the later, I'll explain why this is used in the later set of tutorials. So this is essentially used that it can update each weight in the network, and then we'll iterate over each parameter. So let's say we have n number of parameters in the model. We'll go over each parameter in the model, and we'll take each parameter's value. So let's say the parameter value, and then we will subtract its gradient from that parameter. So this is essentially the learning algorithm. So a couple of things which we are doing: we're using a predefined loss function, we are computing the prediction of the model, we are computing the loss function, we are predicting and or printing the loss function over here. We are then putting the gradient of the model to 0. We are then doing a back propagation, and then from each parameter in the model we are subtracting its gradient, or the gradient computed from the previous step. So let's see how the gradients looks like. So as you can see, as we are iterating over 100 examples, the gradient of the network is slowly reducing. We can also run it for 500 epochs and see how much it goes. So this is the basic boilerplate schema of how you can train a simple neural network in Pytorch. And we will use the same schema to train different kind of network, more advanced networks. But this is the basic building blocks, what you need to know essentially to train your first neural network in Pytorch. So thanks for watching this video. If you really like these kinds of topic, please subscribe to my channel for more upcoming videos. Thank you.